Okay, people, so it seems like the microphone does work in fact. So hello everybody. Good morning. Well, afternoon actually. It's 2:58 p.m. in the afternoon. So yeah, how's everyone doing? How's it going? So I was thinking on recording a video. I've been watching some videos lately. It's been a while since the last time I did. And they kind of motivated me into, you know, doing stuff. So here I am recording a video, and this time I wanted to talk about something that for me it's really interesting, and I've been like thinking about it, and I come to realize, well, what is this topic? This topic basically is quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and well, it's since I was like around 7 years old, 7 to 8 years old, I always became so fascinated about science. And I knew since that age that my life would have to do something with science itself. So, as it all started with this book specifically, basically, this book, and that was quite amazing because as the years have passed, I've come to realize that actually science is something which is so wonderful in itself. And specifically, quantum mechanics. What I didn't realize, well, I haven't read this book yet, but what I found so fascinating is that there's a section in this book which talks about it. And it's basically about questions and answers, basic and general interest questions about science. And so there's a space for quantum mechanics itself. Well, it's awesome because I come to realize it. And I think this is something that happens to all of us. We get to encounter something and we took it as non relevant, or we don't even know or notice it's there until a lot of years pass by, and then we stump across that same thing years after, and then we're surprised about how relevant that thing is in our lives on the current moment. And I think this is something that happens with people as well. It's crazy, in fact, how we got this idea that nobody is like, you don't have the slightest clue that someone will turn out to be so relevant for your life at some point. It's actually astonishing the way that goes, the way that works. I mean, it's just time doing its own thing. Our experiences are, we're just evolving, we're just growing. That's something unavoidable on its own. So, well, I was talking about quantum mechanics itself, quantum physics, and I come to realize that something so fascinating about this is the way it mixes up a lot of things. It mixes physics, of course, math, which are two things I love just so much. I'm passionate about, concretely and specifically about math itself. I think I may not be like the greatest genius that has ever existed, but I've always got this certain ability on maths, which I think it's kind of has been decayed a lot, like has been decayed on this past years, because I don't think I've trained it as I used to do it. At least like the mental agility, the velocity of mental processes and stuff like such. But it's something so fascinating. So we've got physics, we've got math, but we've got some other pretty interesting and astonishing and like which make this subject just so special. I got a cap. It's funny. I don't really use caps, but I don't know. I mean, I had to use it because, I gotta protect myself from the sun. But I think it's funny to word. So we got intuition. I think a lot of things involve intuition onto itself, and that's something that comes pretty close with creativity and imagination, which I think are three components that make up quantum physics. That that makes just this new science, this newborn science, so weird because it's just mind blowing how we often think and we often tend to think how that we know how things work. But the moment we get to question ourselves a bit deeper onto that stuff is where things get real messy and get real weird because we start to try to comprehend and try to understand the things beyond what we tend to experience and what we tend to perceive by our senses day to day. And well, there's something pretty interesting about all of this because at first glance it might seem that like all this quantum stuff follows pretty weird rules on itself, and I think it does. I mean, I'm kind of new on this topic. I've got certain interest interest about it, but I mean, it's crazy because we dive onto the fundamental components of matter. And something quite cool about this is that we basically know pretty few about it. But even if we cannot see it, which is where I think things get real cool and pretty awesome, is that even if we cannot see something, like, we cannot see atoms, we cannot see the fundamental particles within the spectrum, for example, or within the things that surround us. But we've got this. We've got our mind. We've got intelligence. We've got rationality. And this, where I think these two sciences, math and physics, sorry, yeah, bit of an interruption. So I think this is where the thing is just so surprising because across time we've come to realize, like, for example, with ancient philosophy, that people used to question how things worked and try to hypothesize and came up with a lot of crazy ideas to try to explain stuff even if they couldn't, like, see it somehow. And so we come across this atom idea, the most undivisible part of matter, non-divisible. I think it's quite easier to express it that way. And how, even if they didn't have microscopes or stuff like such, across time we came up with the technology to actually prove that stuff, and we come to realize that they had nothing but this thing, our brain, our minds, our rational processes, our imagination, our ability to question and to keep up with answers that give a certain explanation to our doubts. And that's something just so astonishing that we can put in place, like, we can take and apply it to quantum mechanics, quantum physics, because a lot of things came up and were discovered across math itself. We didn't have a way to prove it. That's the way, math just told us that this is the way this must happen, or this must take place, or this thing must exist. And that's where it's just so brutal because we somehow transcend from our senses, and we are into this level where the only thing we can hold ourselves on is our minds, our intelligence. And that's awesome. That's awesome on its whole. And also the way we tend to come up with creative experiments to give proof of this hypothesis or this theoretical, you know, answers we get from equations, from math itself, and how we eventually come to a point where the actual math is not enough. So we gotta create new ways to understand math and like another branch of math itself, so we can get this way of making things work that we get to discover day by day. And that's something just so brutal that blows up my mind on such an entire level. And I think it's fascinating unto itself. It's so astonishing. It's fascinating. It's beautiful. It's the prime beauty upon things. Coming to think about them in this way, it's something just so pure, and that lets us to explore new panoramas and new views and new ways to comprehend things and to view things. So, people, this is kind of a first video. I hope you like it. I'm not expecting exactly to make all these videos have a certain sense, like a like a logical sense in the topics I talk about. This is more like a way to express my thoughts and to share with people. So I think it's quite a pretty interesting project. And since I've got some vacations and some free time, some pretty free time, I think this is a pretty good way to put into practice my communication skills and my curiosity way to explain things, and also some sort of hobby. I've been trying to look up for new hobbies and new activities to do, not precisely to kill time. I think that's probably the last thing I'm wishing, because I don't want to go back to school. But I think this is a cool project, like some sort of album of thoughts. It's pretty cool, in fact. So thank you very much, people, for watching. I'll get to dive deeper into things. I am looking forward to, you know, strengthen my knowledge on the subject, as with this thing as well. And at the same time, I can spread my vision, my way to see things to other people. I think this is a pretty considerable length of video, so thank you very much everyone for watching. I'll probably just upload this without thinking much about it. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the video. I would really appreciate if you comment some stuff. I'll keep just posting and stuff. So thank you very much, people, and I'll see you next time. Okay, so this is very much basically